Hi, welcome back. I'm the Irish Film Critic, also known as Real Solid Snake, and today I'm going to do something different. Just not a film, something different. And I'm going to talk to you today about one of the greatest TV shows ever created. Have you ever heard of a TV show called Babylon 5?
And so it begins. There is a hole in your mind.
What do you want?
No one here is exactly what he appears.
Nothing's the same anymore.
Now, Babylon 5 was created by a man called J. Michael Straczynski, and it was about the human race bringing together all the alien races on a space station that they called Babylon 5, where aliens of all races can sort out their differences peacefully. Because 10 years earlier, the humans were nearly wiped out by another alien race who called themselves the Minbari. And after that, both the Minbari and the humans came together to create a project that would try to ensure that another genocide doesn't happen. It wasn't an immediate hit with people, but it kind of gained a cult status a few seasons afterwards. It just kind of kept increasing in fan base as the seasons went on, and it gained an even bigger fan base once it hit DVD. So let's talk about the show itself. Okay, Babylon 5 was the first TV show to create what they call the arc storyline, and that is one whole storyline from beginning until end, not one season each, from season 1 up until the very final episode of the entire show. Well, that didn't exactly work out that way, but it kept the same storyline for 4 of its seasons. And let's talk about the first 2 seasons today, because we don't have enough time to talk about the entire lot, even though I'll probably branch out into some of the other storylines in the other seasons. I want to talk about them. Okay, so season 1 was all about Commander, setting up the characters and the storyline to follow. And pretty much we'll talk about the characters. The commander of the space station was Commander Jeffrey Sinclair, played by Michael O'Hare. He was a soldier in the Earth-Minbari War, and he was also key to the end of that war as well. And he was actually picked by the Minbari themselves to lead that station. But he has a major destiny to follow in the seasons to come. Susan Ivanova is the second in command, and she's played by Claudia Christian. Michael Garibaldi is the security chief, and he's played by Jerry Doyle. Dr. Stephen Franklin, played by Richard Biggs, is of course the Doctor. And then there's the alien races, and pretty much every alien race would send an ambassador to the station to represent their government. And the Minbari ambassador is Ambassador Delenn, who's played by Mira Furlan. And she has every ambassador will have their aide along, and her aide is Lennier, who is played by Bill Mumy. You have Londo Mollari, who is the ambassador for the Centauri Republic, and his aide is Vera Kodo, played by Stephen Furst. And then you have the Narn race, and their ambassador is Ambassador G'Kar, played by Andreas Katsoulas. Now, in season 1, like I say, it just talks about each character's who hates who and who doesn't hate who and who gets along and background stories, which pretty much brings us to one of the main storylines of this entire show, and that is the Narns and the Centauris who are against each other. And the Narn were, they were enslaved by the Centauri race for many hundreds of years, and obviously they're free now, but obviously that bitterness still remains, and you can see it in G'Kar and Londo's relationship. They're always at each other's throats. Each of them doesn't like the other. In fact, they almost hate each other. So this is what brings a man called Mr. Morden aboard. He is a mysterious man. He comes up to every ambassador in that station and asks them only one question.
What do you want?
Some of them turn him down, but he gets to G'Kar. When he asks him the question, G'Kar says this.
Wait.
What do I want? The Centauri stripped my world. I want justice.
But what do you want?
To suck suck the marrow from their bones and grind their skulls to powder.
What do you want?
To tear down their cities, blacken their sky, sow their ground with salt, to completely, utterly erase them.
And then what?
I don't know. As long as my homeworld's safety is guaranteed, I don't know that it matters.
I see.
So G'Kar only wanted the Centauri, so Mr. Morden doesn't find him, well, interesting enough to continue his conversation. But then he approaches Londo.
What do you want?
This is a silly conversation.
Yes, it is. What do you want?
To be left alone.
Is that it? Is that really all, Ambassador?
All right. Fine. You really want to know what I want? You really want to know the truth? I want my people to reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. I want to see the Centauri stretch forth their hand again and command the stars. I want a rebirth of glory, a renaissance of power. I want to stop running through my life like a man late for an appointment, afraid to look back or to look forward. I want us to be what we used to be. I want it all back the way that it was. Does that answer your question?
So, Londo wants to conquer the entire galaxy,
Yes, it
and
does.
this is what interests Mr. Morden. But in Season 1, there's also the story with the Earth government, and that story is that, sinister happenings are also happening there too, which will bring it to the season finale of Season 1, which sees Ambassador Delenn changing herself. Ambassador Kosh is the ambassador to the Vorlon race. They're very mysterious. Not many people have actually seen them. So it's actually, quite surprising to them that an ambassador exists on that station. So, in this episode, Mr. Garibaldi also uncovers a very, very evil plot. While trying to expose the plot, he gets badly wounded by one of his fellow officers. He does manage to get the word to Sinclair, though.
It's all right, Michael. I'm here. You'll be okay. Got to. Hold still. No. Going to kill the president.
Sinclair does try and stop it, but he's too late. And this results in the Vice President Clark, becoming the new EarthGov president.
I, Morgan William Clark, do hereby swear to uphold the laws of the Earth Alliance and to perform the role of President to the best of my abilities.
In a later statement, President Clark had this to say about the death of President Santiago.
It is important that we move on to create the world that Luis Santiago would have wanted for his children, my children, and for posterity yet to come.
And also in the finale, there is also a story between G'Kar and Londo. They're fighting over a Narn colony being in Centauri space. Londo doesn't like this, but Mr. Morden assures him that he can sort it. So, thinking that Mr. Morden is just going to sort it out, Mr. Morden actually calls on his associates to do the job. This doesn't cause much conflict yet, but it just does lead to a lot of questions as to how their colony fell so quickly. But G'Kar does suspect that there's another alien race out there that they do not yet know about.
They don't have the will. The Vorlons don't care. Minbari wouldn't do it. The other worlds aren't powerful enough for a strike like this. There's someone else out there, Nato.
And that would be the end of Season 1. Things would never be the same again. So, into Season 2. Commander Sinclair gets reassigned to the Minbari homeworld to become the Earth Ambassador. And we get Commander Sheridan. he is brought in to replace Sinclair, and he has the reputation as being the only man who destroyed a Minbari vessel during the Earth-Minbari War. His storyline is that a few years ago he lost his wife, who was doing an expedition on a ship called the Icarus, and it was, they believe that it exploded while in uncharted territory somewhere out in space. It was never seen or heard from again. And this pretty much, you know, he's never really gotten over it. He kind of became a workaholic to try and take his mind off things, but it's always in the back of his mind. He always thinks about his wife, which is what brings him to Mr. Morden. Mr. Garibaldi notices a picture of Mr. Morden whenever Sheridan is going through the list of people who are on board the Icarus, and he spots him there.
Captain, I know what I'm talking about. I've seen him. He's alive.
But, of course, if he's dead, how can he be walking around the station? So, Sheridan, of course, has him arrested, he has him interrogated, but to no avail. And everyone on board says that he must let him go because either one, he's breaking the law, and the other reason, which is Delenn and Kosh go to him, tell him that he must let him go, and they're forced to reveal what is really going on. And this is where the mysterious new alien race is finally revealed to us. So they take him in and they tell him about the great enemy that has been plaguing them, the Shadows.
There are beings in the universe billions of years older than either of our races. Once, long ago, they walked among the stars like giants. Not all of the first ones have gone away. A few stayed behind, hidden or asleep, waiting for the day when they may be needed. The Shadows come again.
They are an alien race that appears every 1,000 years to wreak havoc and annihilation.
Long before we went to the stars.
To help combat them, there are a group of soldiers who call themselves the Rangers, who help fight the Shadows. And they tell them about, Delenn and Kosh tell them about the homeworld of Zahadun. Hang on a minute. Okay, let's look at this, okay? You've got a bad guy who's barely shown, okay? A alien race called the Shadows and a group called the Rangers who fight them. Their homeworld is called Zahadun, and one of their allies is a mysterious man called Mr. Morden. I'm pretty sure I've heard all those things, or similar things, to a great big epic fantasy novel I read. I think they made 3 films about it well over a decade ago. Anyways, the big story for Season 2 is the Narn Centauri War. During that time, the Centauri Emperor was going to come on board. He was going to talk to G'Kar, tell him how sorry he is for what his race did to his people in a way of trying to build peace.
To atone for our actions. He said it was the only choice he ever made in his life, and now that seems to have been taken away from him.
But in that time, Londo had his other plans. He contacted Mr. Morden and got him to do his work again, which resulted in the death of many thousands of Narns. So the Narns catch the Centauri in the area at this time, and they declare war.
I'll go and I'll bring him back. And someday I'm going to remind you of this conversation. And maybe then you'll understand.
I understand. Just fine. By this time tomorrow, we will be at war with the Narn. May the Great Maker forgive me.
Now, the whole point of Babylon 5 was, well, the tagline was, our last best hope for peace. Ultimately now, it has failed. It all hits the fan. They start fighting, and the Narns, they get pummeled. They get pummeled because Londo has the Shadows on his side, and they are just too strong for the Narn to fight. Pretty much every battle they went into, the Shadows were there waiting for them, and they just got annihilated. So, you know, whenever the show started, you think that the Narns are pretty much one of the bad guys. They appear like, well, from G'Kar, they appear to be this bitter race. They're out for vengeance, they're out for blood, and the Centauri just look, you know, to be just greedy people. You don't really pay much attention to them. But through the dealings with Mr. Morden, like, you know, Londo's dark side really takes up. But it doesn't mean he doesn't have a heart, if you know what I mean. And while it all culminates towards the end of the season, whenever the Centauri then plan the end of the war, which is going to result in the bombardment of their homeworld. So once they do that, you can, if you just look at this moment here, this is where you see the guilt etched on Londo's face. It's really hard for him to take in just what he has done in his effort to regain power. I think at this moment it just shows that Londo, I don't think even he himself expected it to get this far, but it did, so now he has to follow through with it. So, during the bombardment, hundreds of thousands die, and the Narn are forced to surrender. Before they surrender, they talk to G'Kar and tell him, as a prideful, honourable man, you know, obviously because that's what the Narn are, they're prideful and honourable, they must ask him to make one very tough decision, and that is to plead sanctuary on Babylon 5 so that the Centauri do not take him back home for trial and execution. So this leads to the council room. Londo is declaring the war over. The Narn have surrendered unconditionally, and sets out the terms. So during that, he then demands G'Kar to be returned to Narn, and Sheridan then refuses to hand him over because he's declared sanctuary. And this leads to probably one of my favourite moments in the entire show. It's a very, very powerful moment. Powerful acting, powerful music, powerful direction. It's one of the best moments in TV I've ever seen, and it still hasn't been topped to this day.
Nevertheless, at this moment, G'Kar is no longer an official representative of Narn and must be removed from this council.
We will wait until...
Now!
No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free.
Ooh, that sends shivers down my spine every time I watch that. So, with that, I'll leave it at that. That's pretty much just want to talk about the first 2 seasons. Later on, the seasons do get... Well, Season 3 is actually the best season of the entire lot, if I had to say. Season 4 is great, and it's just... You pretty much just need to watch it for yourself to understand. So, with that, I'll leave it at that. Best thing to say is that this show rocked. Yes, it may have borrowed heavily from Lord of the Rings. You could have had some hokey acting here, some hokey acting dialogue, but there was plenty of good acting and good dialogue all through the place. But, well, also, let's not forget to mention the really awful 5th season that was given to us. But, for the main part, it's a main part of TV history. I was young, and when it first came out, I didn't really watch it until it was all over. My brother kind of forced me to watch it, but during that time, it was just like, you know, sci-fi. It just looked like a load of rubbish to me. I wasn't really into sci-fi back when I was a kid. But eventually I came around, and I would actually still find myself watching the DVDs any chance I get, because, well, it's just such an easy show to watch. So, if you can, please check out Babylon 5. You wouldn't regret it. So, with that said, I'm the Irish Film Critic, and next time there'll also be something entirely different for you again. So, stay tuned.